Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to use validators. So what are validators? Well, validators do two things for us. The first thing they do is they allow us to transfer data to and from the window. If you remember, in the previous episode we created these two methods, transfer data to window and transfer data from window. Validators can do this for us, making it unnecessary for us to write these methods. The other thing they do for us is they allow us to filter user input. Before we get started with validators, I want to go back to using a modal dialog. Mainly because I want to get this code out of the onHelp event handler because it doesn't belong there. So let's grab this. And we can get rid of this. And we don't need this either. We'll go back to creating an address dialog on the stack. And we need to pass the this pointer, wxIdAny, and a title. If the user hits the OK button, we'll print some text. Now we need to go to mainWindow.h. And we can get rid of this pointer. We can get rid of this as well. Okay, let's run that to make sure it works. Okay, that works as expected. Now let's go to addressDialog.h. And let's get rid of these methods. And we'll go to addressDialog.cpp. And we'll get rid of their definitions. Now let's run that. The data is no longer being transferred to the window. And it's not being transferred from the window either. Okay, so let's go to the top of the page. And we'll need to include a file. That will be wxValgen. Valgen stands for Validator Generic. Here where we created the street box, we'll add a call to the setValidator method. And we're going to use the generic validator. The generic validator needs a pointer to the data member. In this case, that's going to be street. So now you can see that the street data member is being transferred to the window. And is being transferred from the window as well. Okay, let's do the rest of them. Okay, so now all of our data is being transferred to the window. And the data is being transferred from the window as well. Okay, so that's the generic validator. All the generic validator does is transfer data to and from the window. Now let's try a different validator. This time we'll use the text validator. For the wxText validator, we'll need to include the valtext.h file. The text validator takes a pointer to our data, but it also takes a filter. The alphanumeric filter will only allow the user to enter letters and digits. You'll notice that when I press the space button, we get an error. That's because a space is not a letter or a digit. To prevent that, we'll need to add the space filter. So now we can enter letters, digits, and spaces. Let's say we want to let the user enter a period, but we don't want to allow all punctuation. We can do that with the add Char Excludes method. We'll need to create an object of our wxText Validator class. I'll call this Street Validator. Now we can enter a period, but we can't enter, for example, a question mark. If we try, we'll just get an error message. There's also a method called add Char Excludes. So here we're excluding the capital B. Adding a capital B to the excludes list will prevent the user from entering that character. I can't enter a capital B, however I can enter a lowercase b. Another thing we can do is exclude an entire string with the add exclude method. Notice the validator allows us to enter the string, but if I click the OK button, we get an error message. When we click the OK button, the validator's validate method is called, and if the string is in the exclude list, it will display an error message. Now let's do the same thing for the city box. Except this time we'll use the alpha filter. The alpha filter only allows the user to enter characters. And we'll also add the space filter. The text validator doesn't require us to pass a pointer to the data. If we don't pass a pointer, the text validator will create the data internally. Notice that no data is being transferred to the city widget. That's because the data is created internally and it doesn't have a default value. Also notice that the data is not being transferred from the window either. That's because the getCity method is just returning the city data member. Instead of doing that, we need to call the citybox getValue method. And now you can see that the data is being transferred from the window. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the zip box. But we're going to use a different validator. We're going to use the Integer Validator. We'll need to include the valnum.h file. The integer validator is a template, so we need to pass the data type we're going to use. The zip data member is a string, so let's get rid of that. And we'll go to addressDialog.h. And we can get rid of these data members. And here in the getZip method, we'll need to call the getValue method as well. Okay, so now I can enter digits into the zip field. But if I try to enter letters or punctuation, we just get an error message. Another thing we can do with the wx integer validator is we can set the numbers minimum and maximum. But to do that, we'll need to create an object. So now the integer validator will only accept a number between 0 and 999,999. Okay, so if I enter in some digits, that works. If I try to enter a negative number, that doesn't work. And it won't let me enter a number greater than 999,999. Okay, everybody, that's it for validators. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.